This doesn't exist anywhere on YouTube, so I thought I might as well make it. Uranus is a star. I prefer to rename it uranium, because uranium is more of a serious name. According to establishment dogma, Uranus is an ice giant, which is based on poor theory. Uranus is not ice, nor is the actual giant size it was in its past. It is a highly evolved star, probably even older than Neptune, according to the general theory. Reasoning is provided to replace the outdated dogma. According to the general theory, Uranus is more than likely older than Neptune for various reasons. Reason number 1. Uranus is less massive than Neptune. As a rule of thumb, in the general theory, objects that are less massive are older. But there are exceptions to the rule, such as having been in orbit around a hotter host and having lost more of its mass at a faster rate. This means the potential size of the end result, Earth, would be considerably smaller and would also explain the puffiness of Uranus as compared to Neptune. Remember, Neptune's more massive than Uranus, but Uranus has a larger diameter. Number 2. Uranus has a lower heat flux per its size and composition. In the general theory, an object with a lower heat flux as compared to an object with a similar size and composition is older. Heat flux meaning heat transfer from inside the object to out of the object. Basically means the less energy that's coming out of it, the older it is, as a general rule. Number 3. Uranus has a comparable magnetic field size to Neptune, which means that it is at least comparable in age to Neptune, given the possibility that it could be a tad bit younger. Most importantly, it is much older than Jupiter and Neptune, or Jupiter and Saturn, I should say, which both have much stronger, larger magnetic fields. It's pretty apparent to me that they're much older because they're smaller and their magnetic fields are a lot weaker and a lot less massive. Number 4. Uranus has more methane by volumetric composition, which is measured to be 2.3% in the atmosphere, than Neptune, which is measured to be 1.5 plus or minus 0.5%, which means it has had more time to build up methane in the atmosphere. This is comparable to Jupiter and Saturn with 0.3% volumetric composition in the high atmosphere. On another note, it's astoundingly obvious that if methane can be produced by stellar evolution itself, then the natural gas and the oil on Earth are not fossil fuels. The only real fossil fuels are coal. But oil and natural gas are natural byproducts. They're abiogenic of stellar evolution. Well, life is itself, if you think about it, but there's no life step in there to make oil and natural gas. It forms naturally as a process in the center of stellar evolution itself. It is reasonably predicted that Uranus is therefore a tad bit older than Neptune, as well much older than Jupiter and Saturn, which fits Uranus right after Neptune on the graph, as well on its way to becoming an ocean world. Essentially, it's the closest object in our system to being a proto-Earth. It still has yet to go through the ocean world stages of evolution. Upon closer inspection of the graph, the reader will see that Neptunes are about 2 billion years old. Uranus would sit probably about 2.1 billion years. This fact causes enormous complications to the accepted dogma. It means that there is probably at least 100 million years of time separating Neptune from Uranus, so they could have not formed in the same vicinity of each other. As well, they are both about 1.5 billion years older than Jupiter, which means they also did not form anywhere near Jupiter, as they were evolving well before Jupiter was even formed. They're much older than Jupiter. This all means we have yet more evidence that we have a system of adopted objects. None of them are related to each other by formation. The only thing that relates them together is the fact that they are currently orbiting the sun. That's it. Unfortunately, the dogma has created an entire astrophysical study based off making one assumption into dogma. The objects in our solar system are not related simply because they are all currently orbiting the sun. It is not a nuclear family. It is an adopted family. Nuclear meaning Mom, dad, brother, sister, all related. All coming from the same singular seed, if you will. Well, obviously not the mom and dad, but the children. It's an adopted family. Everybody met randomly on the street and then became a family. If astronomers and astrophysicists continue to assume that they're all related just because they orbit the sun, then they will continue to be confused in explaining the very simple questions, such as why is Uranus' orbit off its axis of rotation by so much? Why is it more puffed out compared to Neptune? It probably was ejected from a system where it was orbiting really close to a hotter host. Why does it orbit so far away like Neptune? It was probably adopted by the Sun and Saturn, which then flung it out to the edges of the solar system. Who knows? The facts, though, are that unless we actually look at the object and stop assuming things to be true, like all the objects in the solar system or all the sun's leftovers, then astrophysicists have no hope of explaining the very basics of astrophysics. If I could have a time machine and really teach Herschel what is now known or is now understood about Uranus, it would probably have been extremely obvious to him as well. It is a damn shame we have only sent one probe to check them out. They are actual, physical, billion-year-old stars, not the theoretical nonsense of establishment dogma. Later, y'all.